So good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We are looking forward to doing a walkthrough of the Croxton to Haslingfield section of the East West Rail proposed route. This is our final session for the parishes that we've run. So this is number 7. We've done this with lots of other areas and this has been very well received. So we're looking forward to doing this with you tonight. We are just under a week away from the consultation closing, and we felt that it was very important to try and come out to you all to have this session so that we could listen to your feedback and your comments on what we are proposing. So I'm just going to go through the agenda, please. We'll do some introductions. We've got a lot of team members that are joining us tonight from lots of different departments within East West Rail, so it'd be very good for you to see their faces so you know who you're speaking to. We'll give you a bit of an update on the project, an introduction to the workshop session, which is really just a session where we discuss the options with you and ask for feedback. We won't be breaking you into rooms or doing anything like that. The update on the proposal, so we will go through that with you, and then we'll just do a bit of a summary on the design and connectivity of what we're proposing and wrap up with some Q&A. If we can just go to the next slide, the housekeeping slide. I'll just do the housekeeping first, thanks. So with this session, what we suggest that you do is to just raise your hand. There's an option at the top of the toolbar on Teams where you can raise your hand and then I can answer you in numerical order. In addition, you can pop your questions into the chat box and we will get around to reading those as well. As I suggested earlier, it's being recorded. That's so that we can ensure we're capturing everything tonight and providing a comprehensive sort of summary note for you. A copy of the recording and the meeting notes from tonight will be sent to you so that you can review them for final approval. Thank you. Back to the introductions, please. I think most of you know me already. I'm Sarah Jacobs. I'm the LRG Engagement Manager. Nice to see you again, and I'm going to hand over to Rupal now. You're on mute.
Good start. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rupal Patel, East West Rail's DCO and Engagement Manager.
Will, please. Will Egan.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Will Egan. I'm the design lead for East West Rail's technical partner for this area of the route.
Fiona.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Fiona Mann. I cover environment for this section of the route.
And Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben Nicholas. I lead on the traffic and transport impacts of East West Rail.
Fantastic. So that's our team tonight, and they'll be able to address any of those questions you have on those specific areas. If we can go forward, perfect. So just a sort of brief summary of what we're planning tonight. We are conscious that there have been lots of iterations of the proposed route in the past. Tonight, we're very much focusing on what's been released in the non-stat consultation, following on from the route update in 2023. So tonight, we are very much looking for feedback from you on the community benefits and impacts, land and property.
Benefits, and it's all impacts.
Oh, sorry, I think pop yourself on mute, whoever that was. Thank you very much. We'll be looking at construction and logistics, traffic and transport, and door-to-door and active travel. So the idea of this evening will be to really draw out your feedback. We will be taking that away and putting that into a feedback log, which will be actioned internally. But this isn't the sort of official feedback from yourselves, if you like. We still very much encourage you all to complete the online feedback form or the paper forms from the events. Each person is very much encouraged to do that. It's an individual, obviously, response. So please, please, please do that in addition to what we're putting together this evening. So I hope that sort of lays out what we're intending to do tonight. I'll just pause. Sorry, I just pause on that for a moment. I can see there's a few questions in the chat, so I'm just going to have a look. Let's have a look. Sharon, so this session is the end of the 7 sessions that we've delivered, and we had to do them before the 24th of January, and it was the way that the dates fell with the availability of staff, because we're still running consultation events, and in fact the staff have actually done almost 7 days in a row of these. So we did try to get them in as early as possible, and this is the last one, so apologies that it is sort of quite late, but the consultation has been open for a while and we have had quite a few events locally, so hopefully you've been to some of those. But this isn't sort of the last time this evening that you can talk to us. There is some obviously next week as well. But yes, and I agree it would have been helpful to have had this before the consultation started, but we aren't actually allowed to do that. The DFT gives us steer on when we can announce consultation, and as soon as they told us when the consultation was live, we told you, and then we opened our consultation shortly after, so it was all done in the timeline laid out by the DFT. Believe me, if we could have come out to you earlier, we would have loved to have done, but it's just not, we're not able to do that, I'm afraid. Sorry, okay, so let me explain about the other sessions. So the way the route has been divided up, it's done in different sections. So for example, last night we met with those parishes in between Oxford and Bletchley. We've met with the Cambridge City, and we've met with oh God, my mind's gone blank now. Somebody else help me out here. St Neots to
Oxford.
Thank you. It's been divided into 7 sections. My mind's just gone completely blank. So we've divided this section up into a certain amount of parishes, and that's why tonight we're meeting with Croxton to Haslingfield. So that's why you've been invited to this one. So I hope that makes sense. But all sessions will be available very soon online. So if you wanted to watch other sessions, then you can do that. Has that answered your question, Sharon? By all means, come on camera and give me a nod, or okay, fab. Is there any other questions before we move on? Okay, we will move on. Next slide, please. Great, so I'm going to hand over to Rupal now for an update on the process.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So as you know, this is a significant infrastructure project with many moving parts in its development process, which involves extensive assessments along the way. From the diagram you'll see up on the screens at the moment, you can see a timeline from where we started, where we are today, and where we're heading. So to date, we have undertaken 2 non-statutory consultations, announced our route announcement, and we have maintained a consistent engagement with you throughout the local representative groups, and as Sarah mentioned, we will continue these and having these conversations with you on a regular basis. These steps have been critical in kind of shaping the project thus far, and we've now reached a key stage in the process where we're consulting on our current proposals. The feedback we gather during this non-statutory consultation, along with the input from stakeholders like yourselves, will play a pivotal role in informing the next phase of our design process. So following this, we will then enter a period of refining the design a bit further. This will include conducting environmental assessments and developing appropriate mitigation measures to address potential impacts. The refined proposals will then be presented during the statutory consultation stage, so that's further along the line. At that point, we'll be able to provide you with more detailed information on the project's impacts and gather further feedback. As you can imagine, the amount of feedback that we're receiving, it will take a bit of time to sift through all of this, but we hope to kind of gather this and then be able to present this to you. After the statutory consultation, we'll once again review and incorporate all of that feedback we've received, wherever it's feasible. This will then allow us to prepare the design even further, ensuring we're ready to submit the development consent order and ready for examination. Next slide, please. So if we just take a quick moment to recap the non-statutory consultation so far and where we currently are. So we're literally just over a week left until the consultation closes. But so far we've held 10 in-person events, attracting around or just over 3,000 attendees so far, which is a fantastic level of engagement for us. And in addition, there have been 2 online events with more than 100 attendees joining us virtually. As of January, we've received over about 2,000 responses and counting, another great indicator of the interest and input from the community. For those looking to dive deeper into the project, if you haven't already, you may have already seen an extensive range of materials we have available online, including a virtual consultation room, which you can peruse at your leisure. And it's a great resource to explore the details a little bit further at your own convenience. Finally, if you look at the bottom right, you'll see the remaining events we have listed, 3 more to go, including, well, I was going to say there was one happening today, but there's not. But if you've had a chance to attend one of the sessions and share your thoughts and questions, then that would be great. If you're around and you can make any of the upcoming ones, then please do. Otherwise, this is your opportunity to speak to us and share any concerns or queries that you would like to have addressed. Next slide, please. So the purpose of these workshops, so as mentioned, we have offered these to the LRG groups across the routes, and they are mainly for an opportunity for you to speak to those specialist experts and just kind of deep dive into the plans and proposals and raise any queries and concerns. We will also be capturing the feedback that we received from you this evening and taking that away to feed back into our design process, and that will kind of fast track our kind of work in the background to make sure that we kind of get this inputted and considered. Next slide. So we mentioned at the LRG workshop, so we've also had a different offering as well for our local authorities, where we've held similar sessions. These we've called enhanced workshops, which have been in person and face to face. They've been half-day workshops and proved really, really beneficial, and we've got a lot out of them. So we've engaged with those in your areas and the local authorities around Cambridge, and you'll see a list of the councils and districts that we've been speaking to, and there's just a little bit of a list of kind of the key top items that were discussed and were kind of high priority on their agendas that we covered off, some of which you might have questions on, which we have the relevant experts to answer for you as well. And over to Will. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So yeah, the plan is there's a couple of slides here to give an overview of the area that we're covering tonight. So we're covering what we call route section 6 between Croxton and Taft, and then part of route section 7 as far as Haslingfield. And then we can kind of decide what we want to go with that. I've got some plan and profile drawings as well if they will help the discussion. So kind of a brief overview of route section 6. So this runs from just to the east of St. Neots, and in general kind of follows roughly follows the alignment of the A421 dual carriageway that's being constructed at the moment by the A428 improvement scheme. This route section itself is 19 kilometres long, twin track railway, and includes a new station at Camborne, just to the north of the Camborne settlement. There are some passing loops just to the west of Camborne station. The purpose of those is to allow faster moving passenger trains to overtake the slower moving trains, such as freight trains. The Camborne station will be accessed via a new bridge over the A428, existing A428, for pedestrians and active travel such as cyclists. Road access to the station, including a car park, will be from St. Neots Road, which is just to the north of the A428. Continuing east, we then have a tunnel to go under various roads, including the A428 and the Bourne Airfield development site as well, and that will be in a cut and cover type tunnel construction. And throughout this area of the route, the railway will be on kind of a series of cuttings and embankments, and where necessary, the existing roads will be crossing over the railway, either going either over or under the railway. The location of the station itself, to the north of Camborne, was announced at the route update announcement in 2023. Both north and south were considered, but it was judged that the northern location had fewer impacts and also enabled growth to the north. I think that covers route section 6 for now. And then we can.
Sorry, Will. There was a question around how to access Cambourne Station
from the north. So there'll be there's the existing road that leads to St Neots Road, Knapwell Wood Road, or what's further west. There aren't too many roads that lead. I guess it would be Ermine Street would be the next one to the west, I think. Is that right? In terms of then. In terms of kind of the existing public rights of way as well would allow pedestrians to get to the station from the north.
Does that answer your question, Peter? Do you wish to come on camera?
Sorry, I'll correct myself slightly. There's St Neots Road or Brockley Road, which kind of turns into St Neots Road as well, would be the road immediately to not immediately. The first road west of the station would be Brockley Road, St Neots Road, and then to the east would be Knapwell Wood Road.
Thanks, Will. There's a question around the Cambourne development from Isabel.
So there is a. So I'm not going to answer a bit about the local plan. I'm not part of the planning team, but there's a master plan that's been developed for a development of to the north of the proposed station that's publicly available.
Okay. We're getting a lot of questions that we might need to go through.
Yeah.
Will, sorry, rather than people on camera, but there's some questions.
Okay. In terms of narrow rural roads passing through villages, yeah, and I think there will be further work needed to be done from. This might be one for Ben actually, to talk about kind of the traffic and transport side of things in terms of accessing the station.
I can. Okay. So hi, I'm Ben Nicholas. I lead on the traffic and transport aspects of East West Rail. I suppose just to give a bit of context to, and a bit of assurance to everyone on the call about how East West Rail, I suppose, have appraised some of the access to stations and the impact on the highway network, is that we've in effect developed a series of transport modelling and appraisal tools. Which reflect the current road conditions on the network. So we've undertaken a lot of data collection exercise across the whole route over the past summer and in 2024. You might have driven over some of like the black tubes on the road that count traffic for us. So we've in effect taken established a model that's a 2023 year base year model that reflects current year conditions. We've then grown that traffic to 2034, so that takes into consideration all of the economic and housing growth within the area that's been allocated by the local authority. So we've spoken to the local authority and they've let us know what is certain or near certain to come forward. So it's important to consider about when we talk about impacts of East West Rail, that we're talking about impacts where we pivot from 2034 or 2049. So we've got a 2034 model and we also forecast a 2049, which is what we call our design year, where we're saying that East West Rail would be almost its full capacity in terms of releasing economic potential. And it's when I say about considering your journey, that some of the journey and access problems you have now in 2025, 2024 are only going to get worse up until the 2034 and 2049 without East West Rail. And East West Rail's intention when we go to mitigate some of these risks is only to return it to the state without east-west rail there. These models enable us to identify the hotspots on the highway network due to interventions. That's the locations of stations, and when we have more finalised plans around construction and logistics to understand where the potential impacts and hotspots are due to that. We then go away and work with the local highways authority and the local authority to understand mitigation measures. So we'll be developing those with the local authority and highways authority to understand what's palatable and what can be accommodated on the highway network to, in effect, increase capacity and enhance the highway network to allow the road to return without east-west rail. And so all of that, in effect, supports these decisions around diversions and access routes, is that we've undertaken that modelling process to understand where traffic is likely to want to route because of capacity enhancement. So that's where I suppose a lot of the routing is based upon, and so hopefully that should give you the confidence we're not just pushing traffic down any road. It's been thought about, and there's been modelling and appraisal, and that's ongoing. So a lot of the outputs that you are currently available are in the transport update report that has supported the non-statutory consultation. So within there, it's broken down by route, and you can see those maps fairly clearly about how busy the highway network is now, and then how it changes till 2034 and 2049, and then when you get the scheme overlaid on top of that. And it's important that people understand I suppose the potential impacts of east-west rail, and they're not widespread. We just need to differentiate between, yes, the roads are going to be busy, but east-west rail are only going to be providing interventions to help mitigate, I suppose, the issues that are introduced by east-west rail in isolation. So all of that modelling feeds into the route, the access here that Will was talking about, and it has done across the whole route. So that's where we are with traffic and transport. I don't know if anyone's got any questions on that.
I'm just going to remind people to please feel free to put your hand up and come on camera so we can have conversations as well as reading off of questions in the chat. Be very welcome to. There's been a few comments to that. Sean, brilliant, because I know you put some questions in. Would you like to come on camera?
Yeah. So that the modelling that Ben just spoke about, I haven't found that, and I've not had a lot of time to look through the documents, but there's an enormous amount of documentation, and it's really quite hard for, I think, most of us to find the pieces that are relevant to us.
Okay. So if you're specifically interested, I don't know, I would say that even though there is a lot of documentation, there's probably only 3 or 4 key documents that have been published to support the non-statutory consultation. The key one for transport is the transport update report. If you specifically look for that, and then you can search by route, and within the route it will give you the baseline of future road conditions, and it should give you a really, really good oversight of, I suppose, transport, and the same applies to all the other specialisms.
Yeah, we can get those. We can send you the links if you need them, Sean. But it's fair to say that up till now, a lot of the events that we've held as well, if you come to any of those, we could have very easily given you the details there. Also, there's been a contact address that's been live since the consultation was launched, where if anybody was having any trouble with finding any documents, maps or anything, then we were able to send those to you as well. But we can certainly get you links tonight after the meeting for anything you need. So let's make sure we pick that up and do that. I'm just going to go to Nicola, who's got a hand up, then I'm going to go back to some of the chat questions. Nicola?
Hi, Sarah. I just want to make the point that if we don't know something exists, then it's not really possible to ask for it. So this is the first time I've heard of this road modelling. I'm trying to understand this, that you're looking at putting the roads back to the state they were. Is that correct in terms of traffic?
Correct, that they would be without east-west rail.
That they would be without east-west rail.
Yeah.
Okay, because fairly early on in this process, Caldecott was told that East West Rail would solve its traffic problems. Now, as far as we know, we have no traffic problems. We're a rural village. People don't really come here unless they want to visit Caldecott. Now, with the station just up the road, we're going to have everybody coming through St Neots Road from the east, passing the BP station in order to get to the station. It's actually quite a dangerous junction coming out there anyway, because cars fly through trying to get out of Caldecott. That's only going to get worse. And I don't understand how people from the south are going to get to the station. What Caldecott is worried about is, and I suspect Bourne is too, is people travelling using us as a rat run through our villages to get to the station. So I don't know if you can say what your modelling has told you about that.
So I suppose within the modelling, and I know that you're pretty raising an eyebrow to this, is that I suppose because the local roads are probably underutilised in terms of capacity, that it's being forecast that the local roads can hold the capacity of any increased demand. But that isn't to say that that is an acceptable solution at the moment. And this is the reason why we're having this, I suppose, this non-statutory consultation, is for you, Nicola, to really push back and say, actually, we've got this wonderful community here. We've got these roads. We really don't want this. And is there any more, I suppose, is there any more, I suppose, suitable routes that you could potentially sort of suggest, or is there diversions that before they hit your local region that you would prefer to see them sort of pushed off onto? And when they say about they resolve your transport issues, as you said, I don't know who said that, but I think I'm hoping that they were sort of saying that in effect, if there was any transport issues that East West Rail were going to, I suppose, introduce within the local network in terms of creating issues around creating, I suppose, making roads over capacity or junctions over capacity, East West Rail would be looking to mitigate against that, to in effect alleviate that congestion. So your day-to-day journeys, even though may experience more traffic on the roads, I suppose the delay in capacity, you wouldn't see that much of a difference.
Well, we are talking about a rural village here, not a road that people should be using. It's for through traffic and speed bumps. So it's not, can't see how Caldecott could take further traffic than it already is, really. But anyway, we'll put that into the consultation.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Nicola. Norman, you got your hand up, and I know you've got some questions here. Is it Norman? Sorry, Neil, apologies.
Neil, yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, well, Nicola's made a really good point here. I'm in the village of Bourne and on the parish council there, and I hadn't really thought about this before, but I think Nicola's absolutely right. So villages, or people coming from villages south of Camborne, for example, Kingston, Haslingfield, Eversdens, and so forth, are almost never going to be passing through either Bourne or Caldecott to get through to Camborne. And these villages are just not equipped for a massive increase in traffic. And it would be very helpful to know, broadly speaking, how many people you're expecting to use the train on a kind of daily basis. How many cars are you expecting to arrive and park at the station? And what proportion of those are going to be coming from different directions? Because if we're talking, for example, of additional, say, let's 100 cars passing through Bourne at 8 o'clock in the morning and also in the evening, it's going to be absolutely awful. We've already got a very narrow chicane in the middle of Bourne, and we've got a busy village school that is, clogged up with traffic at that time. It just won't take it.
Okay, I suppose I'll answer those questions I'll answer those questions now. So in terms of finding out all the information about what roads are going to be affected or over or under capacity, if you do look at the I suppose just Google transport update report east-west route. It's in there and it's broken down by section. And the initial modelling that we've undertaken is suggesting along this route that because of east-west route, there aren't going to be any more roads that are going to be over 85% capacity. We're not saying there aren't roads that are currently and the reason why I talk about 85% capacity for those who aren't I suppose embedded in the transport modelling world is that over 85% capacity, the efficiency of a road starts to sort of break down. That's where you can't go at optimum speeds, and so anything that goes above 85%, over 85% capacity, we highlight as having an issue on. And because of the introduction of east-west route at the moment, we're saying that none of the roads are going to go over. Any road that is under 85% capacity now due to east-west route is not going to go over to 85% capacity. So that's where we are at the moment.
Yeah. So how many cars are going to be arriving at the station every day?
So at the moment, that is that I suppose the demand that you're talking about at stations comes from is called in effect the station choice model, and that predicts how many people are arriving and departing from a station throughout the day. And that information at the moment is not within the non-statutory consultation. The reason why that isn't there is that there are still I suppose decisions to be made on those service patterns, but that information has been used. The background information has been used to inform the origins and destinations of how people are going to be getting to and from the station on the highway network. So that is overlaid within the modelling. At the statutory consultation, that I suppose at the end of the year, early next year, that information will be there. So you'll be able to clearly see how many people are going to be accessing and egressing the station, what the mode split is, so how many people are going to be accessing the station by car or active travel or bus, walking and cycling. So you'll have a better understanding of, I suppose, the localised impact in terms of motorised vehicles. And I think at the moment, because that information isn't there, and that's fair, I think there is generally across the route, there is, I suppose, for want of a better word, a fear that there's going to be a gross demand on a lot of stations. However, the modelling is saying at the moment that demand isn't as I suppose in the quantums that people are generally thinking, and that the local road network can accommodate it. So I can't directly say X amount of cars are going to be coming to your station, because there's still some nuances to be figured out around mode splits and choices from the station, but that information will be there at statutory consultation.
So just one more comment, just so as you know, I think it's, is that kind of response that you're not able to provide that information. You need to be not surprised then that all it does is heighten concerns and worries from residents that are affected by this railway.
I 100% agree with you that without, I suppose, that transparency of numbers, that there is an underlying uncertainty there. But I would really recommend that you look, and I know that it's pretty news that it's out there, that the transport update report, it does give you an idea of, when we overlay the likely demand of east-west rail onto the highway network, what the localised impacts are, and that hopefully will give you a bit more certainty that your roads aren't going to be flooded with demand that cannot be accommodated. There may be one. Actually, the modelling here suggests there aren't any links, but we are looking with the Highways Authority and the local authorities to understand if there are any areas of concern on the network that we may not be able to pick up the nuances of them within the modelling. And this is part of the non-statutory consultation here. The modelling is not going to be perfect. It's a tool to help inform discussion and highlight areas. So if you know that there are areas on the network that have particular safety concerns, I think it's been highlighted here that it's a dangerous left or right turn, or you experience congestion in the AM into peak or PM peaks, please do say, have you taken into consideration, because we will look at those junctions. We will look at enhancing capacity junctions there. So we have, I suppose, the time to do that, and now's the time for you guys to really help shape that demand. So if you've got any of that feedback, I'd really appreciate it, Neil.
Ben, just to add to that, is it fair to say that because this is a non-stat consultation and we're aware that we haven't been able to come out with any detail or optionality, the reason that we're having the non-stat con now is to show you the thinking to date. It's to take away this kind of localised knowledge so that we can kind of feed that into the thinking. But absolutely, by consultation, there'll be more modelling done, for example, that continues sort of from next week onwards, for example. But everything we do, we're evolving. So by the time we get to consultation, there'll be more data and more information available. Is that fair?
Yep.
We got next. I think it's bringing the hands up. David.
Yeah, hi. We've been talking about transportation modelling in the operational case, but what about during construction? To what degree of detail have you modelled certain areas, certain critical areas?
So this is a key focus for East West Rail, and I know generally across the route it is causing a lot of concern around I suppose the potential impacts. People have got bad past experiences along the route of major infrastructure within there about how the roads have sort of been turned up and not returned back to normal. Temporary works, late construction works, lots of HGVs. So what East West Rail have done, we have an additional forecast year model that we've said that is 2032. The reason why we've chosen 2032 at the moment it's a proxy for what we're considering peak construction. And we're working with our construction logistics team at the moment to work out how, in effect, the railway is going to be delivered in terms of construction. We don't have that construction logistics plan at the moment because, in effect, there is still optionality on the route, and that optionality directly impacts, I suppose, HGV movements and our construction methodology. But it is important to sort of highlight now is that when that construction logistics plan is finalised, we'll be modelling that within our model. The model is set up already, so we already have within there overlaid. We've undertaken a desktop exercise to start to highlight roads that are potentially suitable for HGVs. So anything that has active travel on there has sort of been greyed out. Anything that has public transport in there has been greyed out. So there are routes already that we're discounting. We're obviously trying to avoid going through local villages and minimising the damage to local roads. If roads are damaged, they will be being returned. But I'm not going to say back to their current condition because they'll be returned back as to the current standard sort of dictated for that road condition. So but for one of, I suppose, of an upsell is that I suppose if the roads are sort of maybe subpar at the moment, East West Rail won't be coming back to if we damage them, relay them to be subpar, they'll be going back to the standard they should be. And in terms of mitigating the running of HGVs and construction and logistics travel, we will be avoiding the peak periods. We won't be going through the AM and PM peaks, your traditional sort of rush hour traffic and school holidays. Any sort of major construction work, we would be looking to phase when there are quieter periods on the highway network anyway, maybe potentially during sort of school holidays and Christmas breaks and things like that. So there are models there. And again, frustratingly, we don't have the information to show you now. But as I said, because there's optionality, that we need to have I suppose, a clearly defined route for us to be able to then publish those construction routes and then be able to show you what the impacts are and then how to mitigate against that. So again, we'll be talking to the local highways authority about the potential pinch points, because those pinch points are going to be different to when it is operational. And what the mitigation will be on the ground will depend if it's a permanent construction feature or a temporary one, because some of the construction and logistics will be temporary, so it may be under 6 weeks or less, and with that there'll be different mitigation measures as opposed to, I suppose, more sort of permanent, should we say, construction routes along the network. So at statutory consultation, there will be a full sort of suite of maps showing the construction logistic routes there. But again, if there are any concerns around past experiences or lessons learned that you guys have experienced through construction, just general best practice, please do feed in, because we are looking at incorporating that. We want to work with you. We can understand it is a time of high stress and uncertainty, and as quickly as we can sort of develop those transparent plans with you, sort of the more confidence you have that East West Rail are going to be doing the right thing by you.
Could I raise just two specific points about traffic during construction. One is Long Road Bridge. I know that's outside this area, but it's going to affect a lot of people from this area going into Cambridge in a massive way, according to your current proposals. So that's one, and also Chapel Hill, the tunnel there. That would involve. I know you're going through. You're constructing it from either end, so you'd need access from either end. One is to the A10, and the other route is to the A603. Presumably, you're considering haul routes.
Yes.
Not using existing roads, which are totally unsuitable for HGVs.
You're addressing a good point there, is that yes, where appropriate and I suppose proportionate and pragmatic, all those things, there'll be haul routes that we will be using. If we have to use roads and local roads, we will be speaking to the Highways Authority, and where appropriate, National Highways, to help mitigate any of those impacts and understand how those roads operate. But all of that, I suppose, the construction logistics methodology around haul roads, the location of them, will be being sort of published at statutory consultation.
And Long Road Bridge?
Again,
that's a massive one.
Yeah,
for kids getting into school, etc.
Yep, and so. And again, I'm almost repeating myself, and I apologise, but that is something that we are aware of, and we will be seeking to mitigate against that. What that mitigation looks like will be discussed with the Highways Authority, and we will be modelling it to make sure that the impacts are. I'm not going to say there's not going to be any impacts, because I think that would be a stretch, but we will be looking to minimise those impacts, and if there are foreseeable delays that happen during, I suppose, school times, that there obviously will be messaging way ahead of that to allow people to understand what the impacts are, likely delays, and it would all fall under sort of traffic demand management in effect.
It's also worth noting that we are talking to all of those stakeholders. Comberton Schools mentioned on the chat, Long Road College, Adam Brooks Hospital, near Long Road, all of those impacted businesses and schools, colleges. So we are already in early conversations with them, and we certainly won't be keeping them in the dark about those sort of impacts.
And emergency services.
Of course, yeah, the blue lights, yeah, absolutely. We're already talking to all of those already, and very high priority, of course. Thanks, David. Sorry, Sharon, I'm so sorry. I missed you completely, and you were next, so my apologies.
That's okay, but I had a question that actually related to the sort of previous bit about transport to the station. So what Ben said, he kept saying that if the roads won't be over 85% capacity. So what is 85? You must know to put into your modelling for a B road, what counts as 85% capacity?
It really, so if you give me within the model, all the roads. Yeah.
To give you some context then, I'm representing the Everstons, and we will be coming up. We have no public transport at the moment, so anybody wanting to access Cambourne Station will be driving, and that means we will be coming up through Kingston and either going through Caldicott or Bourne. We also have a sort of chicane, natural chicane in the village around the church, which is a bit of a pinch point. And we expect that people from, Harleton, maybe from Haslingfield, will be coming through us to access that same route up through Bourne or Caldicott to get to the station. So yeah, it's like not ideal. And like Caldicott, we are a little tiny rural village. So what is the 85% that we can?
I can get back to you on that. I'd need to find out specifically what was in the model, but all of to give you, I suppose, assurance that all of the models, all of the roads within the models are banded by their suitable highway definition, and within that they have a capacity within that, and also a flow curve. So in effect, it tells you how many cars or how many can go on there, and then how the flow breaks down over time. But I don't want to misquote myself on that. So I can get back to you directly around what we
So my
class on the B roads.
other question is, has anybody involved in this modelling actually driven these roads to see what we're talking about?
Yes, we've gone out. So when we say driven, so we would have undertaken road traffic counts across the routes. We understand how many cars are using the key routes within there across the day,
No,
so we can
I don't
understand
mean,
traffic flows.
I mean, have you just actually got in a car and
Yes,
tried
so
driving at
yes,
peak times to
there-
see what's currently there? Because you're saying East West Rail will solve our traffic problems, but for the Evansdons, we either have to drive in the opposite direction if we're going to Cambridge, or to get to the station to catch the railway, or we drive to Shelford to catch the railway, in which case we're in Cambridge anyway. So why would we catch the railway?
So I suppose just to reiterate that East West Rail are going to be solving the issues introduced by East West Rail. We're not saying we're going to solve your current road conditions. That isn't
No.
to say that we won't be working with in the future. It's not. I'm not ruling out the fact that in effect, if there are mitigations needed within your local roads,
Yeah.
that it would make sense to work with the local authority to understand what they're intending to doing and potentially come up with a joint solution. However, if we generally believe there is not going to be any negative impact on your roads, I would
There's
say
obviously going to be an impact on the road, isn't it? Because as Nicola's already said, we're rural villages, and we're
Yep.
going to get an increase of traffic through them. And lots of our villages, we've already been working with the Highways Authority to do things like put chicanes and traffic calming measures in Caldecott, in Bourne. We've just got ourselves a flashing speed sign. Combaton's gone to 20 miles an hour. So there's clearly already a problem with traffic on these roads without then
sorry,
adding
but that's
extra traffic to get to the station.
that sounds though that's a problem with traffic behaviour and not traffic capacity. If the local authority and highways authority are in effect introducing traffic calming measures, that isn't to do with the volume of traffic, it's the speed of traffic. And if anything, it would suggest that there's a lot of capacity on the road for people to speed. So I think that they're two different points, and I get what you're saying, that you want to maintain the village, the local, I suppose, the atmosphere and the safety within that, and an introduction of cars would increase
Exactly. We have lots
accidents.
of elderly residents, for instance, who have enough trouble trying to get across the road. We have a doctor's surgery, so we have a lot of residents coming down to use the doctor's surgery, and we're sort of the surgery for a number of surrounding villages. And the car park is already not big enough, so you already have strings of traffic parked on one verge, which, then you add extra cars trying to get past.
I think that's exactly the sort of information that's useful to us, to know that people are parking on verges. And I mean, I know you're probably already going to do this, but please make sure that that's included in that feedback.
Then the same thing then we're also concerned about at the construction phase being cut off from our other villages, because we have two routes into Combaton and both will be affected by East West Rail. So ideally, we wouldn't want both to be closed at the same time. There is a third way we could get into Combaton, but it's quite a long diversion. So that's the kind of thing you want us to feed back as well then.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. And that's something we would look to avoid, is in effect severancing your village from its normal day-to-day activity. That's not something East West Rail are sort of aiming towards. And probably just something else from my perspective, from a traffic and transport point of view, is that yes, the railway is East West Rail. That's the sort of the focus is on the rail. But the way that I approach it is that it's transport for the user. That there's going to be far more people impacted by the railway than actually use it. And so when we talk about delivering East West Rail, it is about making sure everyone who uses the transport system, and when I say the transport system, we're not talking just about the railway here, we're talking about transport infrastructure, has the capability to carry on doing their journey in a safe and controlled environment. So this is where you guys, this is really the key point, is I'm getting for want of better words, to push back against the design at the moment, as then actually say, actually, have you considered this? This isn't the makeup of the town. We have a slightly older demographic here. We need slower traffic. Where if you increase the traffic, it increases safety issues and things like that. That's really, really important to help inform design, and especially
Okay.
inform our construction logistics plan. So anything like that would be really, really greatly appreciated.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Quite a lot to take down there. We'll go to Nicola next, and then we'll just go back to the chat to answer some of those questions.
Thank you. Just coming back, just to clarify something you said, Ben.
Yeah.
I understand that East West Rail are only looking to solve issues caused by East West Rail and not other traffic issues that there may be. And
Yeah.
you talk about 85% capacity. If I am right in understanding you, if our capacity on our village road at the moment is, say, 50%, are you saying that you wouldn't consider you doing anything unless the capacity went over 85% after East West Rail? Or is it if our traffic goes to 75% from 50%, is that something that would flag up that you've caused a problem, or has it not reached that bar for you to consider looking at it?
So to be truthful, it hasn't reached that bar. So roads are designed to carry a certain amount of capacity.
That was the answer I needed. So what you're saying then is that our lovely, quiet, rural village environment will suddenly get full of cars, and unless it goes over 85%, East West Rail do not consider that a problem or worthy of consideration, despite the problems that will cause to villages: noise, pollution, kids on the road. It has changed our village completely, but you're saying that that will not be a problem to East West Rail. And from what I understood is that I don't think any village here would agree that we want our speeding problems resolved by packing our roads with more cars. That's not what
I suppose just two points of clarity there. That I suppose the first one about speeding, that's not what I was suggesting. I was saying that
you suggested that our roads weren't busy enough.
I was saying that's the reason why people were driving quickly along your local roads, and that is the reason why speeding calming messages were being put in. That's a safety reason. The second point you're saying around in effect, roads are designed to carry a certain amount of capacity, and however, the traffic and transport assessment is only one aspect of this. The outputs from the traffic and transport also feed into the environmental work. The environmental team will be undertaking their own assessments on potential sort of impacts around if that increase in traffic hits environmental thresholds. And of course, if it is going to cause a significant degrading of air quality, East West Rail will be picking that up. It isn't a drop, we're going to drop something in and have negative impacts beyond sort of all recognition within your local roads. But it is important here to remember that all roads are designed for a capacity, and to take the opinion that just because it reaches at or near capacity, it isn't appropriate. If every road did that, the whole of the UK network would be underutilized, and there would be an awful lot more roads needing to be built to accommodate that. Roads are designed for a certain amount of traffic, unfortunately.
Yeah, but this is being caused by East West Rail plonking a station in a rural area. It's a direct correlation to East West Rail, so surely it's.
And we will look at, I suppose, what you're saying is percentage increases in traffic along routes. And I think your first comment was that East West Rail will add all of this traffic on there. We haven't established with you yet how much traffic is going to be on there, and I think that would be the next key in, I suppose, alleviating some of the fears and concerns, the rightful fears and concerns that you guys are experiencing. If we can communicate with you the likely increases in traffic, so you have a better understanding of what that volume actually is,
that would be very helpful.
And then that would help, I think, that would help both sides of us to understand what the potential impacts are. That information will come at the statutory consultation. I would invite you to say now within your non-statutory consultation that in sort of feedback in effect that you have concerns, and that actually I suppose you can't really comment in any certainty around the impacts on your village because you don't have visibility of those numbers. And that will help shape what we do at statutory consultation and the visibility and transparency of that analysis that we share with you. So I fully appreciate, and I'm sorry I feel like I'm pushing back against you here, but it's I can only apologise, first of all, that we can't share that with you because, again, we've got optionality still coming forward. But once we have that, I think some of those fears will fall back, that impact isn't as severe as people are, I suppose, thinking at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ben and Nicola. A lot to think about there. I'm just going to go back to the chat because Norman, if you're still with us this evening, had a few questions. Your first question, I don't think any of us tonight can actually answer that one. I can only talk to the disruption of the build afterwards. We talked a little bit about that, so we will always put pavements and roads back to the position they were before construction started. But your specific question around section 106, we'll take that one away and try and come back to you on that one. Your second point around Cambridge existing 3 main lines and all of the stops available there, and why aren't we stopping in more rural or possible station locations like Highfields, Caldicott, Comberton, etc. Again, there's quite a few reasons why, but we simply cannot put more stations along the route. It will obviously make the journey time longer, but essentially at the moment the route choices and the station choices are the ones that we have proposed. But if you wish to put that in your feedback that you'd like to see more stations, then please do that. And I've already mentioned that we are talking to Comberton Village School. Is that answered some of your questions there, Norman?
Yeah. I mean, the point I make later on, everyone's talking about driving, right, and access to Cambourne Station. The obvious way to mitigate that is to put stations along the route. So people, don't all end up driving to the same place, and people don't have to drive 7-8 miles. They can potentially, heaven forbid, walk to their local station, right? It seems very, very peculiar that we're not serving what would be by far and away the bulk of the commuters into Cambridge with this. There are far fewer people commute from Bedford and miles away. A lot of people commute from Cambourne, of course, but there's a huge amount of people who commute between Cambourne and Cambridge that the railway won't provide any access to. So it just feels very peculiar, especially given that I've got friends who live in the villages I list, and they use the trains all the time. Right, kids access Hales Road, Sixth Form College, all sorts on the train.
I can't disagree with you there. It's a good point. I mean, I know the area very well myself. I'm not too far away, and I completely can see that. I think it's just, cost is a huge reason why. Clearly, if we put a lot more stations in, it would be sort of unaffordable, but it's good.
It's fine. I'm not asking you to justify it. I'm just making the comment.
We get asked this a lot, and it's a good point. But
that's
where we are with it.
But thank you very much for taking my question just before I go.
Yes, I thought you was heading off. That's why I thought I'd do that quickly. So enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Okay, let's just come down the list quickly. Sharon, I think we've covered that with you a bit, haven't we? How residents from the south access the station. We've talked a bit about that with Ben, the traffic and transport element. The question from Sean around the modelling, Scotland Farm is mentioned, but Drayton. Sorry, access. We also have concerns in Drayton about how we would access the station, maybe the C2C route. Yeah, again, it's the access, the door-to-door stuff, isn't it? And the traffic and transport. I mean, there's a few similar questions in here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're certainly speaking to the local authorities around sort of available services and trying to work more closely with the door-to-door stuff. Clearly, we want to be able to get you to stations to be able to use East West Rail, and I think there will be sort of more information on that. Well, there will be, in fact, more information on that at the consultation, the next one. Excuse me while I just flick through these. Okay. Simon, your comments around the northern approach noted, but unfortunately it's no longer in the optionality, so we're going to have to sort of skip that, but it's a valid point and one that we've gone over quite a bit. And clearly the preferred route is now the southern approach. And then Des's question around, can we explore how we dovetail East West Rail with GCP plans for the Cambridge busway? Again, that's the door-to-door activity, and we certainly are having those conversations, and we'll continue to have conversations. I think, Sean, you have your hand up?
No.
No, sorry, Sharon. Is it an old hand, Sharon, or a new hand?
No, it was a new hand.
Okay, go for it.
But now that you've moved on to something else, I can't quite remember what it was about. Sorry. It was something to do with the traffic anyway. Oh, yes, I remembered. Yeah, access. So like I said, the Eversdens have no public transport at the moment. So is East West Rail going to be involved in any sort of way of like in terms of the mitigation? So, you know, you have to do these S106 payments and things, actually providing money to provide a public transport, like a bus service from some of the southern villages to the station, so that we don't all have to drive?
So I suppose to get a bit of sort of, before I answer that directly, to give a bit of context what we are doing. So at the stations, at each station, we are, as I've said, we are establishing the demand that is going to be exiting and entering the station. Within that, we are going to be producing modal splits, and that's how people are going to be accessing the station by private car, by active travel, by bus. And so the idea is, yeah. So I'm just going to.
Currently, there's only buses from Cambridge to Cambourne. There are no buses that sort of go from Cambourne to many of the southern villages. I think from Comberton you might be able to get to Cambourne. Not sure.
Yeah.
You can get to Hardwick maybe.
Okay. So within that work, we'll be establishing potentially how many people will be accessing the station by bus. East West Rail are not a bus operator. We will not even be a train operating company. We're delivering the infrastructure. So in order for a bus company to run a bus, there's two things that need to happen. It needs to be a profitable route for them, or the Department for Transport would have to help subsidise that route to make it profitable. So once we establish the demand at the station for the buses, we will be using that to go and speak to the local authorities and say, actually, this is our mode split. This is how many people can park at the station. This is how many people we are forecasting that have active travel that can do like walking and cycling. And this is how many people we believe it will be by bus. And then that's where a discussion will start. Is the bus service, I suppose, proportionate and appropriate for that? For the station? And what you also need to remember is that you are looking at what the provision is now, without all the economic growth and housing that is going to be taking place within the area. As a result of that, there's going to be more demand, and that may start a conversation with the local bus operators around providing a better bus service that will start to sort of serve those developments to get people to the station. So the roundabout sort of responses to that, East West Rail can help shape a narrative around the need for a bus service to be delivering passengers to the station, but they will not be delivering the bus service itself. Section 106s don't tend to establish bus services. They may be part used to help fund them, but East West Rail wouldn't be involved with that.
Thanks, Ben. We have a question around drainage along St Neots Road, so I think possibly Will might be able to talk to that one, from Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence, probably just need to understand exactly what you mean there, as in it's kind of prone to flooding, or what do you mean there?
Oh, sorry, I've just unmuted myself. Yeah, so it can get quite low along there, and I know they had some issues with the A428. They've had balancing ponds and all that. And I think from the drawing, I might be wrong. Is it a cutout after Highfields? So it's lower, or is it higher? Because if it's lower and it's a cutout, then I think it might have more. Like it's surface water drainage, which is the main issue, sort of like just beyond Highfields.
I tell you what, should I if I get the plan and profile drawing up on the screen, maybe we you can point to where your concerns are, just so we make sure make sure we're discussing the right thing. Is that okay?
Yeah, no problems. It's fine.
Okay. I'll take control of sharing.
Just while Will's bringing that up, I just want to quickly answer Isabel's question about capacity on roads. Each road will have its own capacity, so it isn't a standard capacity across the road network. Motorways, A roads, B roads, local roads all have different capacities, and they have been coded up according to the available ONF data that goes into the modelling. So each road has it as a corresponding capacity and a flow speed curve.
So it's not that one, it's the one further east where it starts to dip around the Bourne airfield and then into Highfields.
Okay, so what we talk, so St. Neots Road comes along here and crosses over the A428. That's just off here, isn't it? It goes down there, right? Oh,
that's right. Yeah, it's literally just on the right-hand side of that one that's overlaid. I don't know if the picture's actually right on my phone or not, because I'm doing it on the phone. I can't read anything there either. But yeah, so just as it curves round, it goes through that sort of like red outline, and just coming out the other end. Is it Doug? Sorry, I've got child bath time at the same time, so I'm trying to do two things at once. Does it go down, or is it actually raised up? So if it goes down into the fields there, surface water is going to be an issue, and I'm just wondering where that surface water would drain to.
So you're talking about the railway the railway will go under St. Neots Road in the A428 at this point. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and as it carries on east, it sort of comes round.
Yeah, and
that's underground there, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the tunnel, and then it comes out into a cutting, as it turns the corner towards Toft and Comberton.
Yeah, and the amount of water that comes off those fields at the back, down towards St. Neots Road, if it's a cutting there, that water needs to go somewhere. So I was just interested to understand what the strategy would be with that. Otherwise, you might end up with some flooded. Obviously, you wouldn't, because you would have a strategy. But I'm just interested to know what the strategy would be to deal with that surface water drainage across the field.
Yeah, so in the general design approach would be you would try and if in this example the water is kind of traveling down the page, you would intercept the water as it gets to the cutting in a drainage channel and direct it towards somewhere where you can outfall it to, for example, a stream or a watercourse. And then whatever gets into the cutting itself, similar kind of thing, the track drainage will pick that up and it will go into a pond before being discharged into a watercourse.
So that's the interesting point. So as we go east, the watercourses are along St. Neots Road, which is where it's currently being picked up, really. But if you're going to have a cutting before, then that water needs to go somewhere. And I don't think I don't know how you get it to the waterways across St. Neots Road. St. Neots Road waterways need maintenance anyway. I mean, half the culverts are actually full of mud, but it would need some thought on the strategy. And I'm just, what I don't want to happen is for all those houses down St. Neots Road, for example, if there's no strategy for the water and the water just ends up being put back out into their back gardens, that could be a problem.
Yeah, no, understood. I think so. There are kind of two approaches here. It's the one that I've described of kind of having drainage systems in place to collect that water and make sure it's kind of discharged at a rate that is acceptable for the local catchment. But then there's also a kind of a further bit of work to look at the flood risk in the area. So it's first of all understanding that kind of the baseline flood risk in the area, and then the impact of the new infrastructure on that flood risk, and then making sure that that if there is an increase in the risk of flooding due to this new infrastructure, that there is kind of appropriate mitigation in place. So the design that's presented at the moment has that first step in place. It has the kind of the drainage system in place, and the team is working on the second half of that the kind of the developing those flood models to understand the baseline situation and what mitigation may be needed to address any increase in flood risk.
That'd be awesome to know. Yeah, so I guess it's just a wait and see by the sounds of it. See what happens with the strategy.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Will, for bringing the plan and profile up. Okay, I'm just going to go back
Should we
to
just
comments.
stop sharing again now? Or,
yeah, we'll go back to the slides.
I can bring it up
for
again
now.
if need be. Yeah.
I'm going to go back to sort of make clear the point up around the northern versus southern approach. Now, we're well aware and completely understand the frustration around the route choice. However, the preferred route was agreed in 2023. So although it's not up for consultation at the moment, we still encourage you to provide that sort of feedback. You're very welcome to do so in your feedback documents. But as I stressed at the beginning of the session, we really did want to talk to you about the optionality that we've brought to you in this consultation. I've just popped a screenshot of a document that we were giving out in Competent on Friday, which we put together for this sort of very much this area, which outlines the rationale for the approach we've taken. I'll make sure a copy of that is included with any of the notes that go out to this group after the session. Hopefully that's cleared that point up. Okay, I think we have next here, Sharon. You got your hand up, Sharon?
No, sorry, that was an old one.
Okay, no problem. Then it's Sean, I believe.
Yeah, just coming back to the drainage question. The analysis of the outflows, is that going to be kind of just limited to the point at which you discharge into a watercourse, or is it going to follow that watercourse up until the point that you've assessed the flood impact? Because we're maybe 5 miles away from the route, but maybe we end up with a lot more water coming down one of the routes that feeds into the village, and it's already very marginal.
Yeah, understood. And Fiona may want to come in here as well, but I think the point here is that the modelling that we do and the mitigation that we propose needs to satisfy the Environment Agency that we're not making flood risk worse than it currently is. So yes, the idea is that you shouldn't see more water coming through a watercourse near you because of the scheme.
Yeah, that's
somebody
right.
has to, because you're collecting water that wouldn't otherwise soak into the ground.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. But yeah, so the purpose of the ponds, the balancing ponds, is to slow the rate of the water coming through. So there's enough storage within those ponds to regulate that flow.
So that comes back to the question: the outflow that you permit from that at that location, you don't necessarily follow that all the way down until you're confident that nobody would notice it.
Do you mean whether our assessment is focused on a very localized level, or do you mean it's whether we analyze it at a wider catchment level? Was that what you're trying to establish?
No. So what I'm concerned, you collect some water around Camborne, and you discharge it into a watercourse. How far do you follow that watercourse to determine that the impact is reasonable?
So I'm not a flood modeler myself, but my understanding is that we would analyse a wider study area, so it wouldn't just be focused in a certain localized area, we'd have to model the entire catchment area to understand where surface water is going, where the groundwater is going, what are the flood risks. So we have to establish where everything goes, where it's coming from, to be able to understand correctly what mitigation we need to put in place, and that needs to be agreed with the Environment Agency. So we will be producing a flood risk assessment as part of our development consent order application, and that will set out all the details from the outputs from the modelling and the mitigation that we're proposing.
Yeah, and my concern is that if we don't intercept that before it's done, we don't have the expertise to question it. So if the analysis is done in a limited scope and it looks fine, everybody's going to be happy until 10 years later. Whereas if we flag it up now and say, actually, we think that this point is a risk, and you include that in your planning, then at least we'll have an answer from your modelling.
This might be one we take away just to give you an accurate answer, because neither Fiona and myself are flood modelers, so probably can't say much more than we have in terms of needing to satisfy the Environment Agency through the DCO process about modelling the catchment. But if you think that hasn't quite satisfied, if that hasn't quite answered your question, then maybe we need to take that away and just give you a more definitive answer.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know the route along the 603 very well, but I suspect that there are big issues there as well. If anything gets added to their flood load, I think there's potentially quite a lot of people might be interested in this.
Oh, absolutely. I've had lots of conversations with people about exactly this. So I appreciate that it is a concern for people. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you can set out your questions, and we can take that away in the chat as well.
Yeah, we can certainly put them in as the concerns to take away. David.
Okay, thanks. It's a couple of questions on balancing ponds. First of all, are they designed primarily as permanent features, or are they combined construction features and permanent, or just construction even?
So the ponds that we've shown in the design are permanent features. So they would be modelled for the kind of the permanent case. But that's not to say there isn't flood risk that needs to be managed during construction as well.
Okay,
if that's kind of way, is that kind of way you're going with that question?
That answers my question.
Okay.
The other point on balancing ponds was I'd heard that East West Rail weren't going to, or the line operator wasn't going to maintain them. Is that true? And if it is, who would maintain them?
So a really interesting point. The railway balancing ponds. So the balancing ponds will either be for the railway or for a highway. So the railway the balancing ponds for the railway you would expect to be maintained by the owner of the infrastructure, and the highway ones you'd expect to be maintained by the highway authority. But that would be subject to going beyond my knowledge here of kind of legal agreements about maintenance, but the idea that they wouldn't be maintained it wouldn't be true.
Oh, they definitely will be maintained by a competent authority.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Fine. Thank you.
Okay. So we've caught up in the chat, and I think we've caught up with the hands up. So was there another slide, Will, or did we do both slides?
We could go to this.
Let's go to the next
yeah.
slide, and then we'll come back to some more questions, because I realise we're just 7:20 now. So let's do this one.
Okay. So so as I mentioned previously, Route Section 7 does go all the way to Shelford, but in this call we're only covering it as far as kind of Haslingfield and just beyond Chapel Hill Tunnel. So in that section, it's basically a twin track railway with
Okay. Sharon, would you like to come back on camera, because I missed some of the questions that Sharon was asking in the chat, and we can go through them now.
Yeah, I mean, actually, those questions relate to this, in that in this new plan now, because of the tunnel under Chapel Hill and a cutting in Comberton, the embankments going past the Eversdens are higher for longer, but this wasn't included in the consultation. So we were not asked about it, even though it is a change in design. Why was that?
I don't quite understand that question. Sorry, Sharon.
Well, so in the consultation, you're asking things like, we've adjusted the design and we're putting a footbridge in Newton in different places. What do residents think about it? Mm-hmm. But we're being faced with a bigger and longer embankment, but we weren't being asked what we thought about it. Why not?
So yeah,
and also it wasn't even very clear, to be honest. We only found out that it's higher for longer by really studying the design plan with all the heights. So it wasn't sort of like openly pointed out that as a result of the changes elsewhere, the embankment will be bigger. So we're understandably, I'm sure you'll agree, a little miffed by this.
So I guess to answer the first half of the question, that's about having a specific box within the consultation brochure or consultation feedback form. Right. Yeah. So in this particular area, it's free text to provide your feedback more generally, as opposed to asking for specific feedback. So that doesn't change the fact that you can provide exactly that feedback.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, our residents were just, the section relating from, what is it, Comberton to Shelford, it only deals with a couple of issues at the very end of the line, and nothing in between, which, a lot of our residents did find sort of a little distressing, shall we say, that, we weren't actually being consulted on these changes. Just anyway, that was just feedback for you, that we are there was no specific question. So yeah.
Is there anything else that I missed, Sharon? Oh, I think you've gone back on mute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, that's fine. It was I was busy just reiterating that residents were disappointed that we weren't being actually given a specific question to answer. And the Barbastells do exist. You said the Barbastells that may exist, they 100% do exist, not may.
Sorry, slip of the tongue. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. David.
Yeah. Feedback from Haslingfield in respect of Chapel Hill Tunnel will be primarily that the tunnel should be much longer. So the western portal is about 200 metres from people's property. We consider this to be unacceptable. The the eastern portal is very close, or would the option that you've said you preferred would obliterate a Bronze Age burial mound, or I believe there's 5 actually. But what's more, it would desecrate the views, the landscape in that area, and so that'll be the feedback from us on the length of the tunnel. We're also supporting Halton, who want a low tunnel, a low track to the north of Halton, and for East West Rail to go under the 603. So, or to put it another way, the A603 could rise on an embankment over East West Rail. So you could have East West Rail track at grade or just below grade in a shallow trench to minimise the noise and the visual impact. Yeah, so those are some of the that is some of the feedback from Haslingfield.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, David. So to your first point about the length of the tunnel, we do touch upon that in the technical report that's part of the consultation material, and we do acknowledge that the longer tunnel does have its benefits as well, and that we will kind of take on board feedback through this process and keep looking at that. So yeah, your feedback is very welcome on that topic. Your other point was about 603 currently crossing over the 603. So again, that is something that has come up in the consultation events that I've been at. So it will be something that we will look at. There are limitations to how low that how low the alignment can go. Yeah, I think you mentioned going in a trench, didn't you? And the issue there is really twofold. So that it's getting over a couple of watercourses. Well, yeah, so going in a trench is very difficult when you're facing. So you've got Longbrook and the tributary of Bournebrook, and then Bournebrook itself, and then you also have the flight paths of the Barbastell bats as well. So it's getting that balance right. So I think we will be looking at ideas such as the 603 going over instead of under. But I think getting into a cutting is probably that will be a bit of a stretch, just to kind of manage expectations there.
Isabel, you've just put your hand up, and I noticed you put a comment in. Did you want to add to David and Will's comments here before we move on? Isabel? You have your hand up, Isabel? Let me unmute you. I can do that for you. No, I can't do that, I'm afraid. Must be on your computer.
Hello?
There you are. Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello.
No problem.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the. So you were saying that if you tried putting the railway into a shallow trench, that you think that would affect the Barbastell bats, but surely if you've got an embankment, does that not affect them? Would that not be a worse solution?
So when it's on embankment, they would go under the railway where there's a bridge. So we're bridging over the tributary of Bournebrook and the
I don't think there are any between the A603 and where the train will go into the tunnel. I don't think there's any mitigation along there. Is there in the design?
Sorry, I was talking about to the west, so between Bournebrook and the 603.
But what about the bit so north of Harleton? So the train currently is going on an embankment from the Ebbsdons, and then it's going to gradually go down towards the tunnel to Haslingfield. But as far as I can see in the design, there's no mitigation for the bats.
In between the tunnel and Halton Road. Sorry, we're talking
the bit between the A603 and Harleton to Haslingfield.
Okay, so yeah, there's Longbrook Underbridge as well, where the bats follow the water along Longbrook. But then you're right. Then there isn't another mitigation until Chapel Hill. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, and
Okay.
and in terms of bat modelling, is that seen as perfectly good mitigation in terms of the bats' flight paths?
Well, it helps us to establish where their bat flight paths are at the moment, where their roosting spots are. So where we know where we're intercepting or severing that, then we need to provide them with a suitable crossing to go under or over the railway alignment, and that's through providing enough clearance underneath structures. So it's a minimum of 4.5 metre height, so they can go underneath the structure at least, and also provide foraging and commuting habitats. So that's planting new woodland, or planting new or enhancing existing woodlands to bolster what's there already, just so they can follow that existing line of vegetation.
Yeah, because as far as I can tell, the roosting area for bats, that's not just that's only part of their existence. The foraging flight paths are part of their existence, and so putting an embankment up, I would assume, would be disrupting their flight paths.
That was part of the purpose, well, one of the reasons, as well as visual, for Chapel Hill. It's because it's going in a tunnel. That means they can go over the alignment, so we're not severing their flight path. So we've done some of our bat surveys, we've contacted local bat groups to understand where those flight paths are. So where we know it is established, we mitigate that. So part of the reason for Chapel Hill going in the tunnel, as well as visual reasons, it's not just for bats, it's to allow them to go over the alignment.
Okay. So is the research that you have done on the bats available for us to view?
We're still doing our bat surveys at the moment, and it's ongoing. We would look to provide a bit more information for statutory consultation in about a year's time.
Because I'm not entirely sure when, but it was quite a while ago. East West Rail asked if they could do surveys in an area of parish council land, but as far as we know, no surveys have been done, or if that, and we did ask at the time if we could have some results from those surveys, and we haven't heard anything. So we were wondering if any surveys have been done around Harleton and what those surveys results are.
I think that's something that we'll have to take away, because we're still, as I say, assessments are still ongoing, surveys are still ongoing. So as you appreciate, there's a lot of data that we're collecting over a very long stretch of route at the moment.
Okay, well, let's take that one away. I don't think we're going to get the answer this evening on that. And as Fiona said, I think there's still more surveys going, isn't there? Fiona, we can take that away, can't we, and come back with perhaps some more information.
Take that away. Yes, and which contact that you've contacted at East West Rail, let us know.
Excellent, thanks.
Okay.
If I could just comment.
Sharon?
Yeah, your own environment people at the drop-in events have been saying that, as you say, you're still working on it, and you're still actually looking at evidence from European studies as to whether the proposed mitigations will actually work. So if you find that they don't work, that having the massive embankment will disrupt the flight paths, and that your proposed little underpasses won't actually be used by the Barbastells, what will happen then? Would you then consider trenching the railway, putting the 603 over the top so that the embankments can be lowered? What is the general thinking if the currently proposed mitigations turn out to be useless?
Well, we're having ongoing engagement with Natural England. So Barbastell bats, they are a qualifying feature of Everston and Wimpole special area of conservation. So we need to come up with a strategy for mitigation, discuss that closely with Natural England, agree what that is going to look like, because we need to get the relevant licenses from them, and they need to approve the mitigation going forwards. We also have to produce a habitats regulations assessment. So that's required under Habitat Regulations 2017. That has to be produced as part of our development consent order application as well. So that has to prove that our mitigation will work. Because if it doesn't, Natural England, they could reject, they could oppose what our mitigation is. So we have to work closely with them to agree what that looks like.
So that's your bit, but then are you also working with the engineers so that if it turns out that the proposed mitigations aren't suitable, that the actual design can be altered?
We work very closely with the engineers and our technical partners, and we have integrated design meetings. So that's, yeah, we talk very closely to each other.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Will, sorry, Charlie, can you just go back to the first slide in this section where we've sort of laid out a bit of a draft agenda? Where's it gone? Keep going backward the other way.
It was just after the Route Section 7 slide, wasn't it? I think.
There we go. Here we go. Perfect. Because I know, Nicola, you've raised, you want to talk a bit about road diversions and such. So let's just have a look here. Should we just jump onto that now? Did you want to come back on, Nicola, and we can go through some of your questions?
Lovely, thank you. Before I just ask about the roads, could I just, we were talking about bats, could I just clarify what the bat mitigation is in Caldegot? Is it a green bridge, and is it permanent or just for construction? Because obviously there's a tunnel eventually.
So on certain stretches of the route, I'm just trying to find the relevant plan on the plans and profiles, but where we identify there are bat flight paths, we would look to provide them with bat crossings. As I mentioned, we would have to make sure that structures have sufficient clearance for them to go under. If they have to go over, we have to provide planting on either side to help guide them over.
It's specifically Caldegot I'm interested in, because nobody really knows what that was. Now, obviously, once completed, it's a tunnel. So is that a construction crossing? Well, because if it's a cut and cover, there's just the devastation. I mean, the bats are going to abandon that area by the time you finish, quite honestly. But is that meant to be a mitigation during construction only, or is it permanent mitigation?
It would be a permanent mitigation where we've indicated in the plans and profiles.
Okay, so it's some kind of green bridge.
Just trying to
over the road.
Have we got the relevant plan and profile section? I haven't got paper copies.
Yeah, I think Will, I think you're looking to bring that up, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, it might be worth having that map up actually, because we'll need it for the roads as well.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you. I think it's just where the road.
Oh yeah, there's a label for a back crossing just up there. Yes,
Yeah.
that's cut and cover.
Mm.
Yes, so that's a facilitated back crossing, and there's woodland. As you can see, there's sort of green blobs in the shapes of trees. That's woodland planting. So that's to connect to existing habitat. It serves as a screening function as well, but it's to help connect those foraging and commuting habitats for bats, so to help them guide them from one side to the other with the alignment. So this would be
that's assuming they haven't abandoned the area because you spent 7 years doing a cut and cover.
Well, this is based on current knowledge. Yes, but we need to enable them to go over the alignment. So this would be permanent woodland planting.
Oh, so the mitigation, the proposed bat crossing, it's just the woodland, is it? Is that what it consists of?
It's the structure as well. It's to allow, no, it's not structure. It's in a cut and cover, so it allows us to maintain that bat flight path over that section.
But once the tunnel is covered, what then?
In terms of them going over?
Once you've covered up the tunnel, and presumably the road will be reconnected and it would look somewhat like it does now, what is it going to look like? As the Caldicott residents come in and out of our village, what is this bat crossing or mitigation you are proposing? What is it?
This would be, I think it's just to maintain that route. I can double check. I can take that away. But
Could you get back to me on that one?
Yeah, but I think it's just to maintain that flight path, I believe. But yes, I'll double check.
So it's not a structure as such.
Not this particular location. I think it's just to maintain the bat flight path.
Right. Okay. Lovely. Thank you. Now you're going to divert the A428. Could you tell us how long that divert will be operational for? Is it for the duration of the project?
No, it wouldn't be. No, it'd be the time needed to construct the segment of the cut and cover tunnel under the footprint of the existing A428.
Okay, so what do you imagine that would be, please?
I suppose just to cut in here in terms of just temporary road closures and diversions, and this also applies to public right of ways where we may be looking at closing or diverting them during construction. So all of the diversion routes and duration will be reported within the transport assessment. The transport assessment will be published for a statutory consultation. Within the transport assessment, it will assess and report on the provision of traffic management along those diversions, as in what is going to be put in place and the duration. The details of the diversion routes by user type, so it will be broken down by car, if there is public transport that is being impacted, where that's to be diverted, HGVs, LGVs, that sort of stuff. Volumes of traffic affected, so we'll be taking on the modelling and appraisal and observed data to say roughly how much traffic will be diverted and in which routes. This is all going to be reported in the transport assessment. I know bus routes and travel are a key life source to a lot of people within the area. So again, there'll be detail of any of the bus routes being affected and how bus stops may be being potentially moved or repurposed for that. And then alongside that, to give people an understanding of the impact of that, there will also be reported the change in journey distance for the vehicle occupants. So again, how much further potentially that diversion is going to be, and that relates to time. And then also not just on, it will be also the impacts on the diversion route. So how that diversion route will affect the people along that diversion route. So that will be reported in there. And again, and I suppose I'm just going to touch upon public rights of way, because again, it's to do with temporary diversions during construction and during the construction period. So we will be reporting on the volumes of non-motorised users. So we're undertaking surveys at the moment along the public right of ways. We understand the volume of people using it, so we'll be able to report the amount of people that are going to be being affected. Again, we'll be reporting in detail within the transport assessment the diversion routes around where they're going to give people sort of a lot of notice around where they're going to be going. change in journey distance as well. Again, we appreciate that some people that use some of those public rights of ways that may be of limited mobility, so it's giving them an understanding of how their journey might be impacted. And again, sort of relating to that, we'll be giving people details on the change of topography, if there's any additional obstacles or hindrances that may be being incorporated during that temporary closure, how that will impact them. So all of that detail is going to be within the transport assessment. There's an awful lot of work going on at the moment to understand what those diversions are going to be, especially during construction, and the duration, because it's important to understand that those diversions and temporary traffic measures that are going to be put in place will be dependent upon how long a closure is going to be taking place. And as a result of that, that will also dictate how we approach that by engaging with the Highways Authority. So if it's something that's going to be longer than 6 weeks, we are going to have to engage and appraise it with the Highways Authority. And if it's under 6 weeks, it will be on a case by case basis upon, I suppose, the significance of that intervention. So how it affects the local residents. So that's all the detail that we have at the moment, and it's all the detail you're after is coming in the statutory consultation documentation. But we are working on it. It is being covered, and there's an awful lot of work going on in the background.
Okay, so the short answer was at the moment you don't know. What feedback are you wanting now at this point then, given that you actually don't have the answers for us as yet as to length of time or it's going to be, I suppose, I think because I know you guys know your local roads, and if there are accidents or issues on, I suppose, key arterial roads where people divert onto now and how appropriate they are, because I'm being realistic here that the traffic, if things are closed and it's temporary, it will be on a natural move. And so if those don't work, or if they cause issues, say due to past experience, if there is a road collision or a road traffic accident or is a construction and a road closes that you know of, and the way the traffic currently diverts now is unsuitable, raise it, because we can discount that or provide suitable mitigation that it will work. So that's where we're in effect reaching out for your local knowledge about how your road network works and when things go wrong. Would you be able to explain how the diversion of Highfields Road is going to work? Because this map on the screen currently doesn't show any diversion for Highfields Road. We've had conflicting answers at the drop-in event. Some people say there will be a diversion, some people say there won't. I did spot on one of your maps, and I'm sure it wasn't there at the beginning because I looked at all the maps and I would have spotted it. I don't know if you've added something since the start of the consultation, but there is a map with a blue line that wends its way round Board Quarter. Can you just clarify what your plans are regarding Highfields Road, please?
So I'm just going to repeat what I said in terms of our plans aren't they're only going to be reported in the transport assessment. We haven't secretly undertaken any assessments around diversion routes now without engaging and developing those plans. They just don't exist at the moment.
So the map that I can see on your on the East West Rail site shows a blue line and says diversion. Okay. Are you saying that isn't true? It's just.
I'm saying that's the latest thinking, and it's a route that we've highlighted potentially for a diversion route, but we don't have the details that you're asking for there. So what I've highlighted about the details that you're ineffectively are after in terms of length, usage, time of day, duration, that's all coming within the transport assessment. All the data that we have available is on those maps.
This particular question, the question was where. So you don't have that map in front of you, so you can't comment.
Is that the other map, Will? The one with the route on, not the plan and profile, the first suite of maps?
I don't know. Just to be clear, Nicola, the drawing on the map right now, I've loaded it directly from the East West Rail website, so I'm not entirely sure what map you're referring to. Do you think it's on the?
Is it the maps on the board, Nicola, in the room? Those sort of maps, or on the table?
No, it's on your website.
Okay.
Under maps, it's in that area.
Okay.
I snipped it. I don't know whether you'll see it on the screen.
So let's have a look. Croxton to Toft. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Is this
Okay.
Is this the sort of map that you were talking about?
No. It's the one that looks like the one that we had before, and it has the A428 diversion, but it also has a balloon line that seems to indicate the Highfields Road is going to be taken past the Willows, round to Bourne Quarter, come back through Wellington Way, and then there's something about taking it across the A428 and potentially joining up with the old Childerley Road. I was hoping for some clarification on that because I didn't see that on the map when I first looked at it, and it's now there. So I'm just trying to find a picture of it on my phone. But sorry, it was there 2 days ago.
We haven't taken any maps down. If anything, we've put more maps on. So
Let's see if I can find it.
I'm looking at Croxton to Top. Let's have a look.
I mean, if this is taking too much time on this meeting, we can follow up. But I don't know whether you can. You probably can't see this.
Let's take it offline, Nicola. We can either have a call on that, or I can get you and Will can just jump on and we can try and look at that. Let's take that off. Sorry, I didn't realise how late it was.
Yeah, that's fine.
We got some plans up. Is that everything that you wanted to?
Yeah,
for now?
Probably better. We'll do for now. Yeah, we'll do it offline. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Isabel, you got your hand up, or was that from earlier? Yeah.
Just going back to that previous map that you had up with the one of your EWR people said about the mitigation for bats and the planting of woodland. What age trees would you be planting there?
That's the detail that I'll need to come back to you on.
Because when I spoke to somebody from the environmental team at the Combaton event, they seem to think most areas where there is a tree symbol will be saplings. And I'm just wondering if that is good enough mitigation if you're trying to encourage bats back to the area that you've just popped the railway through.
Yeah, I understand that. I'll have to get back to you on that one, on the types and the maturity level, whether that's semi-mature or saplings.
So it'd be interesting to know if there was any research done, because if you're just popping little saplings in, I'm not sure that's really good enough.
I'll take that away.
Okay. Let's see. Simon?
What measures will East West Rail put in place to mitigate the noise and disruption to the largest secondary school in the county, Combaton Village College, as the rail line and construction runs right next door to the school, in particular when it comes to exam time?
Again, I mean, I can answer that, or is that for you, Ben? I mean, that's a long way off, clearly, but we are speaking to the school, as I said already, and we will be speaking to the school around any noise impact, especially around important times in the term date. That's all part of our, I think, is it the code of construction practice and the impact? So we will continue to sort of consider those aspects of local life when we start constructing.
One of the other things that the school is concerned about is to make sure there is fencing to stop children getting onto the line near where the school is. From a suicide point of view, they're concerned to avoid the opportunity to allow access onto the rail line.
Yeah, absolutely.
And provide some form of protection for, and I don't mean just during construction, I mean when it's
Yeah, absolutely. Massive safety concerns. As you say, not just in construction. Once the railway is built, all things that are considered and have to be and absolutely will be. But we don't know anything about what that will look like at the moment. Marianne. You're on mute, Marianne.
Would you mind putting up the Caldecott map you've just taken down again, please?
Sure, sorry, yeah.
That's okay, it had to happen, didn't it?
Yeah, right.
The first thing is you're missing a bridle path. So where you've got that footpath 9 is to be closed, that's entirely reasonable if you're cutting across it. But there's also a new bridle path that is not yet on the ground, but was a condition of planning for the development of the housing estate immediately to the left of the entrance to the tunnel.
Does something like that, right?
So there should be a bridle path that presumably would be diverted during the construction and would end up somewhere.
Can you see my cursor?
No, it's further towards Caldecott than that.
Oh,
so if you go up do you see where the Linden development is, Peacock Drive, where you've got the emergency access to the tunnel?
That's here, isn't it? Yeah.
Further north than that, if you go right up to the up and left a bit, where the tree saplings are, there's supposed to be a bridle path. There should be a bridle path emerging from there to connect to the footpath 9.
Okay, yeah, I think we are now aware of this, and I've raised it with the team to make sure that we're kind of including it in our considerations.
Okay.
Yes, I've discussed this a couple of times with people. So yeah, you're right. It's not been shown here, but we are aware of it.
Okay.
So we'll consider it, and yeah.
Fine, thank you. And the other thing, and it would be really nice if that bridle path. Do you know what condition these footpaths and bridle paths are going to be left in? Are they going to be cyclable? Are they going to be maintenance paths along the side of your rails, or what?
So I'll jump in here. So in terms of bridle paths, we would be returning them to in effect, the state that they are now. And the reason why we'd be doing that and not enhancing them is that just because I suppose a walking and cycling path isn't suitable to be a bridle path for horses and vice versa. And so it's important that we establish what the intended purpose is and we retain it as that. If there is, and I suppose that's our stance, and we've had a lot of discussions around, it's a bridle path, can you make it walking and cycling but it detracts from its original purpose. And so that's where we're coming from at the moment, and we're talking a lot to the horse association about the importance of bridle paths and maintaining them and making sure that they are for that purpose, and we don't necessarily infringe on that. So we're very, very aware of what we need to do to help retain and maintain those paths.
Okay. And the second point was the access that you're showing immediately to the left of those saplings. You're showing the access route through the housing estate. We had some discussions at the drop-in centre that was intended to be emergency access for the tunnels, and that road is completely inappropriate for that use.
Yeah, thank you for that. Noted. I think we may have been me that you discussed that with. But yes.
So I don't know what use how you intend to do that access, but something else does have to be considered.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, good point to raise.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. David.
Yeah, one general point and one specific point. The specific point first. Near Haslingfield, in Haslingfield, at the top of Knapp Rise, it looks like a construction compound for utilities or telecoms. I was wondering if you could tell me whether that's temporary, what it'll look like, whether it's going to be a big mast. Yeah. So that's one point. And general point is lack of information on the construction, the construction impact and the overall construction duration. I appreciate you can't give details of the programme at this stage because you've already said you haven't worked them out, but the overall construction duration, with plus or minus a year, 2 years even, will be very useful, and details of what you consider the main impacts would be. So that's a general point.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair point. I wish we could and did have more, but we will make sure we take that away. Thank you.
And the specific point, I was just wondering if you got that answer.
To the how long?
No. The telecoms compound at the top of that rise in Haslingfield. What it'll look like. I mean, is there going to be a 30-metre mast there?
I don't think we have any more information on that yet.
Do you know, Ben?
I don't, unfortunately. That's
rather.
the infrastructure.
Don't have any drawings or anything on that, Will, do we? Or sizing, or do we have anything?
So I was just coming off mute. Do you want to guide me? So where are you pointing?
Okay, if you let's have a look. How can I put it? So the eastern proposed maintenance building, if you go slightly northeast of that, there's a compound where there's a diversion to the high tension, the high voltage line.
This here.
I guess it's partly for that, but you've also, I think you've said it's also for telecoms.
What? So this here?
Oh, sorry. It's the other exit. Sorry.
Right.
The
Okay.
Portal.
Okay. Yeah. Over here. So again, yeah. There's a utilities diversion here, and then what are we saying? Telecoms.
No. Further to the left of the drawing. Wait. The other portal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here.
You're getting close. Yep.
I have a feeling sometimes my cursor doesn't translate on over Teams, so I'm pointing at something. Okay. I think, yeah, right. and you think I'm pointing at something else. Yeah, it's a bit of an issue I'm having. So,
right. So the western
this
western
triangle
portal,
here. I'm trying to outline the triangle kind of by the western portal right now. So I have a feeling my cursor isn't pointing to you.
No,
is that the issue? No, yes. No. Okay.
Anyway, the right-hand side of that triangle.
To the right of the triangle. Yeah. Okay. Just
and exactly what that is.
Yeah, I don't think there's any proposed telecoms site there. I may be wrong, but I don't think so. So that would be, as far as I know, simply for kind of the space that the would be needed to kind of set up a compound for the diversion work is generally the case. Exactly what it looks like, I can't tell you exactly what it would look like, but it's my understanding that it's connected to this. I'm pointing to the triangle, but I'm
right.
As far as you can see, I'm pointing somewhere else. But yeah,
yeah. All right, thank you.
All right, I'm going to go with Neil's question because you've had your hand up a while, and then I'm going to aim to close up. So let's go for it, Neil.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sarah. So this is a different question altogether, and it's really to do with the active travel that I applaud that you are supporting. So I guess this is enabling people with bicycles or walking to continue or to arrive at the station or to continue their journey afterwards. It seems to me, looking at how many people use the current park and rides, drive to the park and rides and then cycle from there into the city, that a lot of people are likely to want to do the same thing but come by train. So that tells me that the train is going to have capacity for putting bicycles on, probably considerably more than a traditional train currently does. So I'm just wondering whether you've thought about that and whether you are in fact providing, for example, space for say 6 bikes per carriage on each train, or not.
one of yours, Ben?
That
Or
would
not? I'm not sure if that's any of us tonight.
In terms of rolling stock requirements, I don't think we've got down to that level in terms of designing, I suppose, the requirements internally for those in terms of active travel. However, what I've spoken to about it before is that we have this station choice model and station access model that is going to determine how many people arrive at the station and by what modes. And so there will be an assumption that we'll need to validate about how many people arrive at the station and leave their bikes there. So we'll have the amount of storage needed to have those bikes throughout the day, and then there will be a further assumption of how many people where they're going to, importantly, and where they're going on to. So we have the origins and destinations. So they may go to, say, for example, Cambridge, and they might need to have an onward journey of 2, 3, 4 miles, and there'll be an assumption of how many if they use their bike or whatever. And so that will help inform those requirements. So the information is going to be there, but we haven't translated that into rolling stock requirements and how that will play out in terms of capacity on the trains. But it is definitely it's a key component to East West Rail that we're not over specifying car parking requirements at stations. We're actively trying to shift those people away, and that's it's not just an East West Rail thing. It's also our local authorities. They're very much, we don't want more cars, we don't want people parking on our side roads or locally or whatever it is. So there is that we have to provide those options to allow people to get to the station, provide an onward journey by active travel modes.
Yeah, so I think you should therefore expect that your rolling stock is going to need to have more capacity for bicycles than traditional trains have today.
Yeah, I think that pretty applies to all rolling stock from this point onwards into the future. We're probably one of the first rail lines that will be able to accommodate that. So yes, it's definitely a thought.
But Cambridge is rather special in that respect, though, in terms of cities where there's a high degree of cycling going on.
Yeah, and a low tolerance of cars.
And a low tolerance, exactly. Yes, I'm one of those that does cycling in Cambridge. So yeah. Okay, thanks.
Good point. I look forward to when we can start having those nice conversations around design of the trains and all of those things. Okay, it's 8 minutes past 8, so I am going to wrap this up. I'm sorry, Sharon, I have to let everybody go. They've had long days, long weeks, and we'll also do. We are due at an event tomorrow, Sharon, as well. So I'm going to have to stop you. Can I ask you to possibly send me the question?
It's a really quick one. I've put it in the chat. But when will we get the sort of feedback from this meeting so we can?
Yeah, I was going to go over that.
Have been raised.
Yeah, I'm going to go over that now, Sharon, if you let me. Just to let you know that there'll be a draft summary note and a list of feedback topics that we've covered this evening, as well as a lot of the questions that have been asked and possibly not answered that we need to take away. So you'll need to give us a few days to turn that around. We're going to issue that out with a copy of the recording so you can watch this again if you need to, and we welcome your feedback on what we've provided, and then we'll look to publish that so that anybody that hasn't attended tonight can see that. So just give us a few days to turn that around. Meanwhile, if you have any other questions that didn't come up that you didn't get around to tonight, then you can still use the contact at email address, and that will be picked up by the consultation team, and we can get those answers to you. In addition, we're in the Clayton Hotel Saturday and Cherry Hinton Monday. I know it's not on your doorstep, but please feel free to come down if you have anything else you'd like to talk to us about. So yes, quite a lot to get through in the next few days. I thank you for your input tonight. It's been incredibly busy, and it's really been really useful to hear your thoughts and feedback, and I'm sure the team that have joined us tonight really appreciate that as well. I'm sorry to rush the ending here, but as I say, the team are incredibly busy at the moment, and I'll be very unpopular if I keep them on for any longer. Okay, thank you again, and I hope to see you all very soon, and you have my contact details if you need me for anything else. So thank you very much. Good evening.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was very helpful.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.